first thing I remember is being 5 years old and waking up and thinking, okay, I'm me now. This is who I am, and I'm going to stay me. Because adults, they seem stiff and awkward, and I didn't want to turn into that. My parents were Roman Catholic at the time, and I remember being grossed out by this pamphlet my mom gave me with a picture of Jesus with blood just gushing from his hands. I didn't get it. I was 5 years old, and I knew I was gay, but I didn't know what that meant. I just knew that the representations of women that I saw on television mainly came from Gilligan's Island. You could be Ginger, who sort of minced around, or Mary Ann. Those were your options. And there was Levy, but she had her whole other set of problems. And I didn't want to be Ginger or Mary Ann. I remember I used to try to convince my parents that I had transformed into different animals. I would walk around the house saying, okay, I'm a pigeon now. I mean, of all the animals, a pigeon? And then I was a monkey, or a cat, or a mountain lion. I was a mountain lion for quite some time. And I remember going to sleep every night and praying that I would wake up with claws or wings or fur, because that made sense, the way females were in the animal kingdom. I remember this kid leans over to me in 4th grade and says, do you know what lessies are? Lessies are these women who steal other women in the middle of the night. And so I thought lesbians were these tall, thin, vampiric creatures, and I didn't want to be that. So in high school, I dated every kind of guy there was. The artsy theater guy who also ended up being gay, the captain of the football team whose jacket I would wear on Fridays, the older guy who had already graduated from high school and had a converted hearse for a car. I remember on our first date, he drove me to the top of a mountain, and we just talked and drank Dr. Pepper and talked about past lives. And he was convinced that he had been this young Russian woman in the 19th century. And that was it. If I wasn't going to fall in love with him, I wasn't going to fall in love with any guy. So I was 17 and working at the Taco Bell. And this girl comes in, Mary Lynn Sweeney. And my manager says, you're going to train Mary Lynn. Sure. I get all googly-eyed. I remember kissing her for the first time, pushing her up against the brick wall outside her parents' house. Just fireworks. So we did that thing that kids do. I told my parents that I was spending the night at Mary Lynn's house, and Mary Lynn told her parents she was spending the night at my house. And instead, we rented a hotel room so we could just be. And it was so freeing. The next morning, my sister calls, and she says, you have got to think something up, because Mary Lynn's mom called to remind her that she's a dentist appointment later in the day, and I will cover for you as long as I can, but you have got to make up some excuse. So I thought about it, and I said, this is it. I'm going to tell my parents the truth. And I did. And they started weeping. And my dad said, maybe if I had just hugged you more. And my mother said, I thought you were with a boy. I would have been happier if you had snuck off to a hotel room with a boy. We are going to get you the best therapist. And they tried to shrink the gay away, to pray the gay away, but of course that didn't work. So, my mother says that if I'm going to insist on being gay, I can't do it under their roof. So I'm 17, working at the Taco Bell, living in a government-subsidized studio apartment, and it was rough. I mean, I have 9 siblings, and I miss them all very much. But it taught me to be independent. People don't know how to be independent anymore. I bought this place sight unseen, all 5,000 square feet of it. It was time to leave Arizona. So I packed up my car, drove the 2 days out to Whidbey Island, getting in at night, and it was a dump. There were broken liquor bottles all over the floor, dead bats. There was a dried snakeskin wrapped around a lighting fixture. My heart sank. I had made a huge mistake. And I went to bed that night thinking I would put a couple months' work into it, clean it up, and maybe try to at least get my money back and find another place. But the next morning, it was one of those clear May mornings when the dragonflies just hover right in front of your face before whooshing off. And in the daylight, I saw that this place had potential. It was built over 100 years ago. It used to be a dance hall. A place like this has history. It deserves respect. It deserves the time for it to tell you what it needs. So I started chipping away at it, bit by bit. Took about 4 years to get it looking the way it does today. I had to learn to sleep with the lights on so the bats wouldn't fly around my head all night. But I did it. It's a good metaphor for life, right? You can either spend your life living in other people's places, trying to conform, or you can build your own place. It takes a lot of hard work and courage. But with enough dedication, you can build your life exactly the way you want it to be.
I heard a knock on my door. I heard the ring of the bell. I got some better, but I couldn't go. So many thoughts in my head, so many places to be, so many faces that I long to see. Standing in front of me tonight, the lights will take me where I want to be. Just like 1,000 nights before, somebody said to me, why do you do this to you? Why not sit back and relax? Go to the island and forget it all. Slow down, you're moving too fast. You seem afraid it won't last. Take my advice, go straight and settle down. Thank you for caring, but tonight the lights will take me where I want to be. Just like 1,000 nights before, I can't explain. It gives me some pain. Give me the lights, precious lights. Give me life. Give me my hope. Give me my energy. You can turn the wrong into right. Precious lights illuminate me. Won't you let me play? Let me play. Won't you